Hello everyone, NZA Engine here, and today I thought I'd try something a little bit different and make a top 10 New Zealand diesel locomotives list. Now, first off, I want to make it clear that this is my own list and therefore it is my own opinion. You don't have to agree with me, but I hope that some of the rankings on this list are similar to your own opinion. Another thing I want to point out is that all the diesel locomotives on this list are ones that operate in the J.T.E Rail network. This does not include diesel locomotives that are no longer in service or are now in preservation on privately owned heritage railways or mainline heritage organisations like Steam Incorporated or Mainline Steam. So locomotives like the DSG Class and the DA Class are off this list. And the last thing is that the EF locomotives will be included on this list, as even though they are not diesel locomotives, they are the only electric locomotives that operate on the J.T.E Rail network at the moment, as all the other classes are either scrapped or in preservation. So, without further ado, let's start off the list at number 10 with the DL class locomotive. Now some of you won't be surprised that I put this at the bottom of the list, and obviously the reason why these locos are the last is because they are found everywhere across the North Island network. DLs are relatively new in New Zealand, with the first batch arriving in the country in 2010. But since then they have taken over the North Island Railway network, and eventually replaced the running of the DX Class locomotives in the North Island. They are numbered in the 9000s category from 9008 to the newest DL locomotive DL9688. While the DL Class mainly operate in the Upper North Island between the Bay of Plenty and Auckland, they also heavily feature on trains in the Lower North Island, making their presence on trains extremely common and often quite boring. The DLs operate on every major line in the North Island, besides the Northland line between Auckland and Whangarei, the Napier to Wairoa line, and the Wairarapa line between Wellington and Pahiatua. DLs sometimes travel along the Wairarapa line, but only as far as the Hut workshops from Wellington, or from Palmerston North to Pahiatua on trains 670 and 671. The good thing about DLs is that they don't operate on passenger trains, and they don't operate in the South Island, so all the train spotters in the South Island will enjoy filming these locos through a change if they decide to go north and film. Taking the number 9 spot is the DSG Class. Now the DSG Class are shunting locomotives that were first introduced in 1981 and primarily operate in freight yards in cities and industrial areas, hauling wagons around and making up trains for the big locomotives to take. They are numbered in the 3000s category from 3005 to 3304. Like the DLs, these shunters are found everywhere, including Invercargill, Dunedin, Timaru, Christchurch, Wellington, Palmerston North, Napier, New Plymouth, Hamilton and Tauranga. They also operate in industrial areas, including at Whararoa in Taranaki, Kawerau in the Bay of Plenty, and Kinleith near Tukaroa. And as far as I know, the DSG Class do not operate in Auckland. Now, at number 8 is the DSC Class. These locomotives are very similar to the DSG Class, as they are shunting locomotives, but primarily shunt carriages to the diesel locomotives hauling passenger trains, including the Northern Explorer and the Capital Connection. They were first introduced in the early 1960s, and are numbered in the 2000s category. These locomotives are found primarily in Wellington, hauling carriages to the passenger services. Christchurch also has a couple of DSCs, but I don't think that they are used at the moment. The DSCs also operate in small freight sidings near main lines, but most of that work is now done by the DSG Class. So the DSC Class is somewhat rare and are hard to find in the National Rail network. Now, coming in at number 7 is another shunting locomotive, and it's the DH Class. They were first introduced in the late 1970s, and are quite a lot bigger than the DSG and DSC Class, and operate in the freight yards in Auckland and Tauranga. They are numbered in the 2000s category, from 2816 to 2868. These locomotives are only found in Auckland and Tauranga, so they are obviously rare everywhere else, which is why they are high on this list. At number 6 we have the DSJ Class. These are also shunting locomotives, and are very rare as they are only found in a few places in the country. They were first introduced in 1984 and are numbered in the 4000s category from 4004 to 4060. The DSJ locomotives look very similar to the DSG Class, except that their cab is slightly off-centre and shorter. And all the places that you can find them are mainly in Picton, where DSJ's 4004 and 4017 are, as well as Te Awamutu and the Te Rapa Yards in Hamilton, as there are only about 4 DSJ locos left in New Zealand. Coming in at number 5 is the DXR Class locomotive. Now the DXRs are actually under the DX Class, as they were built from DX locomotives, but since they look very different and are numbered differently than the DXs, I decided to give them a separate category. There are only 2 DXR locomotives, and they operate between Christchurch and Picton on the main South Line, hauling freight trains and the Coastal Pacific passenger train. They are numbered in the 8000s category, with the 2 DXRs being 8007 and 8022. The DXRs also occasionally work the shunts around Christchurch and sometimes even go down further south towards Dunedin. They used to work in the North Island around Auckland, but now only operate in the South Island. At number 4 is the DF Class locomotive. These locomotives were introduced in 1979 and were originally numbered in the 6000s category from 6006 to 6317, but changed to the 7000s category from 7008 to 7348. Most of the DF Class locomotives are now DFB locomotives, which were upgraded from DFTs and operate throughout the rail network, but primarily in the North Island, hauling Kiwi Rail passenger trains such as the Northern Explorer between Wellington and Auckland, the Wairarapa connections, and the Capital connection between Wellington and Palmerston North. There are a few DFT locomotives left, and they are all found in the South Island, and are seen often assisting or leading freight trains, and there are also 2 DFB Class locomotives in the South Island. There are also 2 DFM locomotives, DFM 7145 and DFM 7226, with 7226 in the South Island and 7145 in the Hut workshops in Wellington, as it will be used as a locomotive on the Hamilton to Auckland passenger service. The DFB Class are very common in the North Island and often haul freight trains as well as passenger trains, including the Wairarapa log trains, trains 126 and 129 from Auckland to Whangarei on the Northern Line, the Napier to Wairoa log trains, which were recently introduced, and trains 566 and 565, which run between Wellington and Castlecliff in Whanganui. So these locomotives are quite common in the lower North Island and are still nice to see, but are rarer in the upper North Island between Auckland and Tauranga, where they are sometimes seen hauling freight trains with the help of a DL locomotive. Well, we're coming into the top 3 now, and at number 3 is the EF Class. Now the EF Class are obviously not diesel locomotives, but as I mentioned earlier in the video, they are only on this list as they are the only electric locomotive that still operates on the Kiwi Rail network, as all the other electric locomotives are either scrapped or in preservation. The EF Class operate between Palmerston North and Hamilton on the electrified section of the main trunk line. They were first introduced in 1988 and numbered in the 30,000s category from 30007 to 30249. During the 90s and 2000s, these locomotives were the main motive power between Palmerston North and Hamilton on the main trunk line, but now the DL Class are now seen more frequently on the main trunk line. The EFs are now more sparse, and they only run on a few trains a day, including trains 222, 229, 390 and 391T. And in November 2019, EFs 30226 and 30163 were taken down to the Hut workshops to be overhauled, which was a step in the right direction for Kiwi Rail, as they were originally going to replace the EFs with a DL Class. Coming in at number 2 is the DX Class locomotive. This class is split up into DXBs and DXCs. They are in the 5000s category from 5016 to 5520, and the DXs are only found in the South Island, and they operate on freight and passenger trains. The DXs are the most powerful diesel locomotive class in New Zealand, and sound fantastic when they are climbing up a grade or coasting down a hill. Kiwi Rail also has plans to make another subclass of the DXs called the DXE Class, but that is currently under the planning stages. The DXC Class mainly operate on the west coast and the Midland line between Christchurch and Stillwater, as they are used to haul long coal trains and climb the steep 1:33 grade between Otira and Arthur's Pass. Originally, the DX locomotives were used in the North Island on the main trunk line, but with the introduction of the DL class, the DXs have been transferred to the South Island, with DXB 5051 being the last DX to operate on trains in the North Island as of December 2019. So nowadays in the South Island, these locos are everywhere, but in the North Island there are none, and since they used to operate in the North Island, a trip down to the South Island to see them is well worth it. Now, if you've been ticking off which locomotives I've already done, you know that my number one pick for the top 10 diesel locomotives of New Zealand is the DC Class. Now, the DC Class were built from DA locomotives in the 70s, with the first batch in 1978, and are numbered in the 4000s category, from 4006 to 4951. The DC Class are one of the oldest surviving locomotives that still operate on the Kiwi Rail network, but as of October 2019, 64 DC locomotives have been taken out of service due to either accidents, poor mechanical condition, and the arrival of the DL class. The DC class can be found in both the North and South Islands, with about half of the class in each island. They mainly help on small local shunts in Auckland, Christchurch and Dunedin, as well as assisting in hauling mainline freight trains, although on the North Island that is more the rare sight. There are currently 23 DC locomotives in service, with DC 4421 recently going out of service after catching fire. Kiwi Rail wants to eventually phase out the DC locomotives with the DL class, but there will likely be a few surviving DC locomotives left in the network. And the DCs will still be needed on the occasional work train up the Johnsonville line, as DCs are the only mainline locomotive that can fit through the tunnels through the narrow gorge on the Johnsonville line, unless Kiwi Rail decides to use the DSG or DSC shunter locos for that job instead. There is also a subclass of the DC locomotives called the DCP class, which was originally used from 2002 to differentiate the DCs owned by Transcenic and Transrail. Nowadays, DCPs are usually referred to just as DCs, but some of them still have the DCP logo written on their cabs and sides. There are also two DCs, 4663 and 4951, which are still in the old Auckland Max blue livery, which ran on the old Auckland suburban network before the introduction of the modern EMU passenger trains. So overall, the DCs definitely deserve the top spot due to their decline over the last decade and providing an exciting sight for rail fans, especially in the North Island. Well guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and feel free to write your own personal opinion on your favourite diesel locomotives in the comments section, and I'll see you soon for more videos.